Call the meeting to order.
Yes.
Roll call.
Cunningham? Present. Glass?
Yes.
Holder?
Present.
Hood?
Present.
Slater?
Here.
Tucker?
Yes.
Quorum.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 3rd, 2016?
So moved. Second.
Slater? Second by Tucker. Slater?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Glass?
Yes.
Holder?
Yes.
Hood?
Yes.
Cunningham? Yes.
Update, discussion, action regarding bylaws of the Alva Arena Authority.
We need a discussion. I move we approve the bylaws. These are a set of bylaws that Rick Cunningham drafted for us. There were some changes in the original. One being the Secretary Treasurer does not have to be a member of the board.
Okay.
Actually, I think it says that, you'll elect a secretary treasurer, but you can have assistants.
An assistant.
To the secretary treasurer that do not have to be members of
Okay.
the board. Just for clarification.
So did you move that we accept
That we
these?
accept it as
I'll
written.
second that.
Hood?
Yes.
Cunningham?
Yes.
Glass?
Yes.
Holder?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Next is an action item on the treasurer's report.
We do have an established account. Now, we're getting updated signature card. At this point, we have our tax ID, so let's check. Our current balance is $1,000. End of discussion.
Once this is turned in though, you will need to go by Bank Central and sign it.
Manny said that once he got all this information, he would give it to us and we'd
And
bring
like
it to the
bring it?
next
Okay.
meeting. We get it, that way they don't have to go someplace and be inconvenienced.
Do you need a motion on the treasurer's report, Sonia?
Since you reported a balance, I would say yes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Slater, second by Hood.
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Hood,
Yes.
Glass,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Next, update discussion from subcommittee regarding scope of work proposal from Preferred Complex Designs. Turn it over to Mike and Darren.
I'm gonna turn it to Darren. Darren has a lot more
You
experience.
pick up wherever we mess that up. We met last Thursday, last Wednesday. Mike and I met and called Glenn and kind of clarified some of the questions that we had of the group. And the first thing that we asked him about was the on-site review of the existing building. And these are some of the questions that we proposed to him. Does their scope of work include looking at electrical infrastructure and providing a recommendation? Does it include looking at the plumbing, sewer infrastructure and providing a recommendation? Does it include looking at the outer shell? Does it include looking at removing the permanent bleachers? Does it look at the structural integrity and just a general recommendation of keeping or removing the structure? Some of those are some of the items that we talked about in the scope of work. And his response back was that his services will provide basically a preliminary determination about all those issues. He said some of those require extra expertise, but he is an engineer, structural engineer, and can give us kind of a preliminary determination on those in his scope of work. When he comes out and looks at that building, it will be a greater scope of work than just it needs to be kept or it needs to be gone. He'll give us ideas and suggestions and preliminary thoughts on all the different type of issues that it may have, may not have, how it could be used, and some of those things. And so that was one of the questions that we had in terms of that review of the existing building, how in depth it would be. And it sounds like it won't be, a stamped, but it will be a preliminary overview and a pretty broad in-depth overview of that existing structure. Is that kind of right? The second one that we talked about was he had in the scope of work was the review of site development advantages and constraints. And the question that I asked him was, does it include information on engineering and evaluation, soil compaction, water sewer infrastructure, drainage and stormwater runoff, the electrical infrastructure needs, maybe even the environmental constraints. And once again, those are, when I asked him those questions, I knew it was very broad and very specific, but he will look at those in the same manner in terms of his engineering background and his expertise and give us his professional suggestions and kind of preliminary information. It's not going to be inside the scope of work, they're not going to have an environmental engineer or those people come out at this point, but he will give us a preliminary, his opinion of those type of constraints and possibilities that may be, barriers or strengths there to our existing location and site. So thought that was a positive thing. The third thing was a code check on the existing building. Once again, questions about, because it consists of electrical, HVAC, plumbing, fire marshal issues. Is it going to have to be sprinkled? Water line issues, all those type of things. Same thing. He had some of those things, same ideas and same concerns on his list that he wanted to look at, and he'll give us a preliminary report back on what he thinks needs to be happening there.
And they will check our building codes to make sure that those buildings are at least up to code now and determine if they have sufficient capacity for water, electrical, whatever.
When you start tearing into one though, does it bring new codes into effect?
Can. In terms of fire code and things like that, definitely. And so, he talked about working with our local code folks, when he comes out for that visit and just see what might be some of those constraints. The other question was, does your firm handle our project from conception through construction docs, through the building, or through the bidding and packaging phase, all the way through completion? And the comment was that yes, if that's what we want them to do, they basically would work where they were kind of the general architect constructional firm that we would contract with, and then the areas of expertise where it would require an architect, they would contract with them inside of their package. But they would be the front person that we would deal with on a day-to-day basis through any issues, through the development, all the way through the completion. He said the other side of that, and he said basically they work on kind of an hourly type fee structure where he would look at his hours, the cost of that time, and that's how it would come together. He said on the flip side of that, if you were to contract with an architectural firm, he said then they would come to him probably, or someone in his scope of knowledge, and you would still be paying a percentage of construction cost for his services, even though that he would be billing them back hourly. So in his expectations, he thought it probably was a better bang for your dollar, working off an hourly type fee structure versus a flat percentage rate of construction costs. We try to push on, what would be a worst case type scenario, and, it fell in line with what you find in architectural firms. He said he has not seen one ever exceed 6% of construction costs. He thought it would be way less than that. So, but we got a worst case figure he thought would be, worst case scenario would be 6% of construction costs. But he said he's never had one come in that high, but that was kind of just when we pushed, he had to give us something, I guess, and so that's kind of what we got back. But their firm can take us all the way through conception, all the way through construction. And he suggested because of distance, we'd want to have some sort of intermediary because of driving and inspection of sites and things like that, and so, that was, I thought that was a good thing if we so choose.
Did he have a suggestion on who that might be, or
He
does he have
did,
any
he asked the
contact?
question, is that somebody that we would want to hire, or, and, you know, I only gave him my opinion. My opinion was if we hired them to handle the project, who they worked with would be truly their comfort level more so than what, you know, I think, in my opinion, we was hiring them based on their expertise and knowledge and their architectural firm, hopefully be somebody that they feel comfortable working with, and we're basically holding them accountable for the project, so, that would be.
He did mention, he didn't say the name, but someone out of Wichita that he's worked with before.
Yeah, he'd ask about, and I think Todd never knew that there was a firm maybe that was considered from Wichita, if we were tied to using them or not. And then we basically said that we didn't know that, you know, if we were to contract with them, it's, you know, whoever they felt comfortable with and provide us the best product.
Where is he out of?
Texas,
Mountain
No.
View. It's northeast Texas.
Mount Pleasant?
Mount Pleasant.
I think that's where it
Okay.
is. I'm not mistaken. Long ways down there.
that was coming to the last question when it kind of self-answered it. At what point is that we're going to, what you're going to do for us starts to cross over into what an architectural firm is going to need to do to us, for us. And our point was, we don't want to duplicate work and thus cost us more money. And that's when he said that they would be the ones that would bring in the architectural firm if we chose to use them at the point that we needed items that the architectural firm had to provide. And so I'm assuming that whatever those things are at the point they would do that. You know, they'd also, at the point we were doing all those official inspections on,
Concrete.
you know, concrete and compaction and stuff, that would have to be a third party that would provide that information. But they would be the ones that would take care of all that scheduling and doing so. And that the initial upfront cost that we would, you know, I think their contract or their quote was somewhere in the ballpark of $25,000. That would carry on into, it wouldn't be wasted money. Those things that they did for us in this scope of work would carry on into the project.
So anything that any information that they gathered during that time frame would be ours, even if we severed that contract at that time, right?
We only specifically asked it that way, but
Well,
yeah,
that's kind of crude, but.
yeah, I mean, I think that would be, those things, that work would be ours to use,
Yeah.
you know.
But if we go with them, it wouldn't have to be redone.
Would not have to be redone.
I like the hourly rate as opposed to the percentage. Dr. Cunningham,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
guys have, Darren, you guys have.
as long
done a
as
lot
we
more.
can have a not to exceed.
Yeah.
I mean,
And what, we had asked for a couple of
Be my-
references, and we've made some calls, because that was the same thing we wanted to ask the question of, you know, where did you come in, reality versus expected, and we're waiting on some return calls back on them.
What's the committee's recommendation at this point?
Well, are we gonna jump to, number 7? Well, the recommendation, I say we do it. I think it's a cheap insurance policy to determine if this is really the site, you know. I wouldn't want to not do it and then get out there and find all kinds of issues. So I think this is, for the size of the project, it's dropping the bucket.
I would concur. I mean, I think that him and his engineering background, that we're gonna be able to, at least from his professional point of view, we're gonna gain a lot of information.
they do have expertise in this type of thing, which is, gives you some comfort level.
And I even think and help me if I'm wrong, he thought about when he'd come and done the inspection that he was gonna bring somebody with architectural background
Mhm.
with him. And so, you know, they're looking at providing us more than just a 3,000-foot flyover and saying, you know, they're wanting to dig into the nuts and bolts and see what it is that we have now and you know, where we may need to go. I mean, what, you know, because we talked about things about the site, you know, that it comes back and we have a lot of limitations or additional cost factors, you know, it may not be the right spot, or it come back to be the perfect spot. So that's kind of what our questions to them were, is we need somebody to tell us that's capable of backing it up with support reasons. Questions?
Did you make a motion? Mike, is it, did you?
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we approve the contract with Preferred, $26,000.
I'd second that.
Motion by Hood, seconded by Slater to approve the contract with Preferred in the amount of $26,000. Hood,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Glass,
Yes.
Holden,
Yes.
Tucker.
So next will be update discussion from the subcommittee, Darren and Mike.
Okay.
Again.
Mike Sure, and Mike Sure.
Well, I'll start. I had the discussion with the city manager and the mayor. You know, I had a lot of questions about the way the leases work out there. Their comment was they typically do a 30-year lease with a 30-year renewable lease. There has to be some type of fair compensation. He says basically state law doesn't let you do the 30-year lease for $1 a year. But the compensation doesn't have to be monetary. It can be other things, use, training, and so forth and so on. But basically, whatever we do has to be approved by the airport board. Is the way I understand it. As far as utilities, there's the towers, the water tower has a 10-inch line, comes out of it, runs to the north, right down that street. So it's right there by the. He thinks that most of the water lines from that point are going to be 2-inch that gets to the county part, the county buildings. But being right there, if we had to, put in 4-inch lines, 6-inch lines, it's just right there. If we needed additional sewer capacity, the main sewer line is up at 11th Street. So we would have to run whatever that is, 4 or 5 blocks worth of sewer line to get there. Don't know the cost of that, but that's part of the deal. And again, that's part of what Glenn is going to figure out for us. The county lease, I guess you talked about that. The county lease, basically it's perpetual as long as they have the free fare. And if they go for 5 years without having the free fare, then it's over. So that doesn't look likely to happen.
Yeah. But, from the county side, they're willing to continue on what they've been doing up until the point that no longer needs to happen. And so they're willing to do what they've always done up to the point that we have a plan to need them to do something different. And so as far as maintaining the facility and utilizing, basically nothing would change as far as their position on management of it would stay the same as it is now.
That's about all I have. If any questions, maybe it might jog my memory of something else we talked about, but that's the gist of it.
Is the leasing part, is that more of an FAA requirement that it has to be?
Yeah, that goes back
fair?
to 1946,
Yeah.
and the original lease was written in 46, and then they wrote another lease in 62, and it's all basically, there are guidelines about height, of course, but it's really pretty general. So, and they kind of put the airport board in charge of that. They don't really have to get approval from the FAA for things, so it's really the airport board kind of controls those leases. And according to the city manager, the airport board wouldn't have an issue with anything that we're doing. So.
Did do you think that the county, and you may not have gotten into this part of it, but do you think they would help with, dirt work and?
I didn't go down that line. I mean, I just was under the, you know, I mean, in the
I'm
construction,
assuming they will.
in the construction phase of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't speak to that, but I mean, I think it'd be sure something that when we got to that point, we would wanna consider asking.
Sure. Which would save a lot.
That's all I've got.
To me, kind of the biggest thing that I think is people are willing to try to make it work. They just don't quite know how it's all gonna go together. And so they're kind of answering, yeah, we'll try to do this, we'll try to do that. They want it to work, but
I think
we're gonna have to kind of build it as we go,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
the process.
once we get the pre-FERT plan, I think that's gonna.
Then it becomes
I think that's gonna
much more
help
real.
conquer, yeah, and that'll be easy for them to see. That's where we're going.
I think my thought also is that just an informational, touch the bases and come back into the center and make sure that everybody's still in the same boat.
Well, I think just that communication on a regular basis
Yep.
with certainly those two entities is really important, so they feel like they're part of it.
And I really think we need to include the airport on that. I don't know how we do that, and I'll visit with that. I actually, not to differ, but I think there are some FAA regulations where we have to get their blessing on some of that stuff. But I'll visit, if nobody minds, I'll visit with one of the airport board members and get kind of the scope of what that's supposed to be.
And that might be something we add to Glenn's basket to him to consider
Definitely.
is we are in a proximity to the airport, and what does that mean? So,
If we could add that to his scope, that'll eliminate me having to do that. That's good.
Yeah, he is gonna look at the existing arena building, but not really any other.
well, and the site itself in terms of, the things that I was looking at was even compaction, slope, runoff, wastewater,
Yeah.
electrical infrastructure, water, sewer.
Yeah, if it went out to the west or
Yeah,
something.
just like, and I didn't know that if we have to, if somebody has to run 5 or 6 blocks of sewer and then figure what does that mean to us? Does that mean an extra amount of dollars or what? So that's the thing, and the scope of work that I wanted Glenn to take care of. Is not that, that building will fit there, but what about all the other surrounding things that may make it the perfect site, or it may not work.
And Dr. Cannon brings a good point. I really didn't think it was limited to just that building. I thought it was maybe perhaps all of the structures that might be affected with, the current arena, the current stall barns, even the ASCS barn that's in front there, because I know that part of their plan has been talked about maybe moving it, so.
We need to make sure, because in our conversation, and I guess I just was going off that list, was just to review the existing building. That my mind was, he was looking at that one large building, and so we want to make sure that he incorporates
All potentially affected buildings.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure,
I
it's
think
his
so.
plan. I'm not
We
sure
would.
that's, yeah.
Nope, that's not my call.
Now, just a question, we just agreed to spend $26,000. What would be the plan there, Todd?
I did talk to my dad about that very thing. He thought this was a very reasonable contract, and
So that's a doable thing, okay. Now that we voted for that, one minor detail.
Make a posted check, Willie. I'm hoping that his information will give us some true direction and clarity on what it is, and
Actually, if you think about it, he's done quite a bit already, not being under any kind of a contract, so that will, I think,
several trips, and I think it,
spur,
I think
him on.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't recall what time frame did he say.
we didn't even get to that. I think that will be something that we'll have to work with him and see, you know, what he has going on, but we didn't talk about timeliness of that.
I think you guys expressed that, the last meeting when he was here, that you wanted it pushed on.
Are we satisfied with the motion that we did? Do you feel like we need to go back and modify it to include the other things, or do you think it's?
On that, those things, you know, I think we just add that when we visit back with him. The two things I wrote down was FAA guidelines and then all affected buildings. Was there any other things that we?
And timeline.
Timeframe.
Motion to approve that with verification of those three items.
So you're going back to item 7 and amending your motion?
Yes.
Motion by Hood.
Second.
Hood,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Glass,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
So do we need to take any action on number 9, or wait and see what Glenn comes back with? Okay.
I recommend we table it.
Is that a motion?
Yes. Somebody please second. that motion.
Second.
Seconded by Cunningham.
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Glass,
Yes.
Hood,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Do we have a motion on number 10?
So move.
Second.
Okay, by Holder, second by Hood. Holder,
Yes.
Hood,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Glass,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Tucker.